I received the transaction notification at 11:47 p.m., while sitting on my bed with my laptop and a cup of cold tea I'd forgotten about 2 hours earlier. The message lit up my phone screen. New transaction $6,247.63, Azure Skies Travel. I didn't need to open the details to know what had happened. My heart skipped a beat. Not because of the amount, though it wasn't small, but because of the names behind the payment. I knew them. Too well, all 5 of them. My mother, my father, Rachel, and her 2 kids. The trip to Santorini, booked on my credit card, without a single question, without a single text. Just automatic, as if I were their default bank. The strange thing was I wasn't angry, not immediately. Instead, I felt empty, like a tiny crack I'd tried to ignore had finally split wide open right in front of me. I'm Andrea Miller, 34, living and working in Manhattan. Head of risk analysis at a central bank single, no pets, no kids, no loans. I used to believe my stability was the most valuable thing I had, until I realized people could exploit that stability if you let them do it long enough. My family lives in suburban New Jersey, just an hour's drive from the city if traffic's clear. My mother is a woman who's always gentle when it suits her, and has a way of making others feel guilty for not helping her. My father is quieter, often staring out the window, repeating how tough times are these days. And my sister Rachel is a walking mess. Rachel has never held a job for more than 6 months. She once tried starting an online yoga shop, which failed in 3 weeks. Her 2 young kids, my noisy angels, are shuffled between neighbors' friends. And once Rachel texted me, asking if I could take them to the city for a few days, meaning babysit. I did everything. Paid my dad's medical bills. Sent rent money to Rachel when her benefits got cut. Shopped for essentials on Amazon for my mom, only to see them collecting dust in the garage. I didn't do it because I'm rich. I did it because I thought that's what family does. Until that night. 3 weeks earlier, I'd gone home for a New Year's dinner. A cold, dreary evening filled with the usual awkward silences. The meal was nothing special. A meat casserole my mom had been making since my college days. Rachel showed up late, her kids covered in cookie crumbs. She plopped them in the living room and cranked the TV to max volume. I tried not to be annoyed, but honestly, I just wanted to eat quickly and get back to the city. While clearing the table, my mom dropped a rehearsed line. This year, we're living responsibly. No vacations. Too many expenses. My dad nodded as always. Rachel chimed in. I even canceled my Palm Springs trip with friends. I nearly snorted. Rachel responsible. If I had $1 for every promise she broke, I'd have another savings account. But I said nothing. I nodded, quietly relieved. For the first time in years, I thought maybe this year I'll get a break. A break meant no midnight emergency texts, no worrying about bills arriving with my name on them, no stressing each month to cover a family loan. I imagined a quiet year, maybe taking an art class, or just living. And then that message came. It took me less than an hour to cancel the entire trip. The flights hadn't been issued, so I called the airline and reported unauthorized transaction. The hotel was frozen by the fraud department. The spa I just read off the card number and date they canceled it instantly. Piece by piece, their dreamy vacation collapsed like a domino game. No tears, no confrontation calls. No need to yell because I was too used to suffering in silence. But that night I didn't sleep. The next morning my phone blew up. I read every message. It felt like reading a foreign language. They didn't ask why I did it. They didn't apologize. They didn't acknowledge using my money without asking. They were just mad their vacation was canceled. I typed slowly, "Why did you lie?" Then I blocked the family group chat. I sat still for a while. It was still dark outside. The city hadn't woken up, but something inside me had completely shifted. I realized I wasn't angry anymore. Not shocked, not hurt. I'd just reached my limit. I used to think love meant accepting, enduring, sacrificing. But that morning I understood. Love cannot exist without boundaries, and the first boundary was silence. They showed up at my doorstep at 7 in the morning, as if everything could be undone with a face-to-face meeting. My mom in her old beige knit coat, Rachel with her arms crossed, and my dad standing straight, staring at the door like he could force me to listen through it. I didn't open the door. I stood behind the curtain, watching them through the frosted glass. It wasn't avoidance. It was a choice. The door was locked from the inside, and this time it wasn't just with a metal bolt. It was locked with the self-respect I'd let them trample for too long. They knocked 3 times. Not loud, not dramatic, but enough to make my heart pound. Not from emotion, from anger and regret. I'd once wanted to keep them close. I'd thought I was an essential part of that family, until I realized I was the only one missing. It didn't happen in one day. It simmered like a small crack in a house's foundation, invisible, but enough to collapse everything if ignored. I remember the first time I helped Rachel with tuition. A small amount, $300 for a community college office management program. I sent the money right after a tearful call. "I'll try," she said. But weeks later, she dropped out. No reason, no apology. Next was my dad's dentist bill. $1,800. His retirement insurance didn't cover cosmetic fillings. My mom cried, saying, "Your dad's in pain and can't eat." I didn't ask questions, transferred the money that day. Then came electric bills, water, internet. Each small, but together they became a chain I'd tied myself to. I thought if I could help, why not? Now I understand helping without boundaries enables dependency. That morning after they left without a word, I began untying those chains. I opened my laptop, logged into online banking. My mom still had access to a secondary account from my college days. She'd once called saying, "Just for groceries, silly girl." I kept it thinking she wouldn't use it anymore. I was wrong. I deleted that account. Permanently. No warning, no notice. Next, I checked my credit card settings. Rachel's name was clear as day under authorized user. I removed her. Then came the Amazon Prime subscription. My mom used it for small kitchen stuff. Netflix shared with the whole family. Hulu. Spotify family. I hit cancel on each one, like cutting tiny cords that had drained me for years. Then the automatic payments. I'd been paying Rachel's phone bill monthly because she needed a number for job applications. I'd covered my dad's supplemental health insurance for emergencies. I'd felt like a lightning rod in a storm, absorbing every hit without anyone considering the cost to me. I sat there for over 4 hours that morning. Every item, every link, every password changed. Not out of spite, but because I'd run out of hope. No one called to ask what I needed. No one asked if I was tired. They only called when they needed money, texted for transfers, said thanks with sighs, then forgot by the next day. I remember the final moment. The last button revoking trusted person status at the bank where I managed a trust account. Set up when I was 25 with small earnings from freelance work and my first bonus. My parents didn't know I'd had full control for years. I'd left shared access on partly out of trust, partly to show I was responsible. Now I locked all access, only I knew the internal code. I drank the rest of the cold tea in one gulp. The screen went dark. The apartment was eerily quiet, but I felt light. For the first time in years, I felt untethered from anyone else. I thought they'd understand, or at least quietly back off. But no. That afternoon, Rachel called. A video call. I didn't answer. She called again from a different number. I declined. Then came a text over a screen longs. "You can't do this. Me and the kids are staying at a friend's, but they're about to kick us out. Everyone says I'm a burden. I need rent money, just this once. I'll get a job. I promise. Don't let your nieces sleep in a car, Andrea. Please." I reread the last line. "Would you let your nieces sleep in a car?" I picked up the phone. Typed hands, steady eyes, dry. "I'm not doing this to the kids. I'm doing this to you." I hit send. Didn't wait for a reply. There was nothing left to explain. I understand from the outside I might seem cold, ungrateful, but only those who've been in my place would get it. Boundaries not set in time become traps. I'd lived in that trap long enough. Kindness without limits turns you into the foundation for buildings that never get finished. That evening I sat in my apartment listening to the ambulance sirens on the avenue outside, watching the flickering lights from the Korean restaurant sign nearby. Something felt real alive mine. No longer tied to complaints, excuses, or thankless transfers. The window was slightly open, the night air slipping in cold, but not biting. I pulled a blanket over myself, thinking of simple things I'd neglected for too long. A morning coffee without a begging text, a weekend not spent rushing to fix the old printer at home. I knew this wasn't the end. Family doesn't vanish just because you cut contact. But it was the first time I didn't feel guilty for living for myself. I learned Rachel got evicted not from her, but from an old colleague from the bank. One late afternoon, he messaged me on Messenger. "Not sure if I should say this, but I saw your sister arguing with her landlord in the parking lot at Complex D. Cops were there. Looked intense." I set the phone down. My hand held a glass of water, but didn't lift it. I just sat there still, not shocked. I'd been waiting for this day. I just didn't expect it so soon. The thing is, I didn't feel satisfied. Not at all. No thrill of victory. No serves her right. Just a quiet void in my chest. I'd loved them once, still did a little, but not enough to dive back into that black hole. A week later, I got a handwritten letter. Not from Rachel or my mom. From my niece Emma, just 6. Pink paper folded in quarters, scrawled with mostly capital letters, and a few misspelled words. But the words squeezed my heart. Dear Aunt Andrea, I miss you. Mommy cries a lot. I don't know why grown-ups are so sad. Are you mad at me? The teddy bear you gave me still sleeps with me every night. I read it 3 times before a tear fell onto my sleeve. Not a flood, just one quiet drop. I folded the letter carefully like it was sacred. I put it in my bedside drawer. And then, I did nothing. I didn't call, didn't text, didn't send a new teddy or books. I just let myself feel the pain without going back. Rachel started posting vague statuses on Facebook. It's sad when people forget who loved them most. What's family without a heart? Learned a hard lesson. Money doesn't mean heart. Under each post, my mom commented with performative sympathy, "This world is cold when money leads the way." Some forget who raised them. I read them all. Didn't miss a line. But I didn't respond. Didn't rage. Just watched silently like someone behind soundproof glass insulated from a lifetime. I started noticing small changes. One day I passed the old bakery near the Hoboken train station. A new sign hung out front, hiring part-time staff, Monday to Friday mornings. A week later, I saw my mom inside wearing an apron, wiping down the pastry case. No one said anything. She didn't look out, and I just walked by. But I knew she'd seen me. Another time, Rachel sent a single text after weeks of silence, got a job at a customer service call center. Not much, but enough to live. I'll keep trying. No begging, no complaints, just one sentence. I read it, didn't reply. My dad, the least expressive, surprised me most. One Saturday afternoon, while at the public library near my old high school neighborhood, looking for a rare book, I saw him outside the entrance handing out flyers. Old shirt, grayer hair, hoarse voice, but still trying to smile at strangers passing by. Another man asked something, and he pointed to a temporary job fair booth. I watched from a distance for a few minutes, then left. Didn't approach, didn't greet, didn't interrupt. I never thought I'd see my dad, who once said, "Men don't beg for jobs like bums standing on a sidewalk handing out flyers with earnest eyes." But I did, and I started to believe. Maybe they were learning to live without me. Then one evening I got a call from the bank. Not a regular employee, the manager of the financial security department. His voice was calm but firm. "Andrea, we need to confirm a call we received today. A man claiming to be your former financial advisor, Richard Lane, requested verification for access to trust account ending in 2387. But something was off. The verification was only partially correct, and he used a password only a family member would know." I froze. Richard Lane was someone my whole family knew. He'd helped my parents during their retirement. But he'd retired 3 years ago, and the only person who'd remember my old password was my dad. I asked softly, "Did he leave a contact number?" "No." He hung up when asked for legal identification. "We've temporarily locked all external access and reported it to the central security system." I thanked him and hung up. The room suddenly felt darker. Not from the lights, but because a tiny spark of hope inside me had gone out. I thought they were changing. I'd seen my mom working Rachel, working my dad handing out flyers. I'd started to believe they were standing on their own, not leaning on me. But when they couldn't ask directly, they found ways to go behind my back. It was my dad, the man who always thought he was in control, who taught me trust is the foundation of every relationship. Now trying to access his own daughter's assets. I didn't get angry. I didn't cry. I just sat there for a long time, then opened my laptop and checked every security setting. I changed 2-factor authentication, removed all secondary accounts, changed passwords, layer by layer, like building a fortress not to protect money, but to protect myself. I knew the day I'd face them would come. I didn't want it, but I couldn't avoid it. And this time I wouldn't yell or blame. I'd just ask one question. Why? I wasn't coming to talk. I was coming to end it. That morning, the New Jersey sky was overcast and thick like a warning. I drove without music. My hands gripped the wheel tighter than I realized. In the rearview mirror, my face was still as water, but my heart was a whirlwind. Angry, sad, disappointed, and a weariness I couldn't name. The last time I drove to that house was over 3 months ago. Back then, I stood behind the window watching them knock. Now I was the one returning. But not to make peace. I just needed confirmation, and a clear goodbye. The door opened before I could knock. My mom stood there in a frayed navy sweater. She gave a tired smile, her eyes flickering with fragile hope I no longer had the courage to gently shatter. "Andrea, I didn't think you'd come." I didn't hug, didn't smile, didn't step inside. I stood on the doorstep between the cold and the lingering scent of marigolds from the porch. "Where's Dad?" I asked, my voice low and direct. She hesitated, her smile fading slightly. "In the living room." "Come in." I shook my head. She understood, led me in without another word. My dad sat in his armchair as if nothing had changed. The way he held the newspaper, his familiar crossed legs, and how he didn't look at me right away, it was like an old script being replayed one last time. I stood less than 3 steps away, close enough to see the light reflect off his glasses. "Did you call the bank?" I asked, no preamble. He folded the paper, set it aside, and looked up. No surprise, no denial, no rush to explain. "I just wanted to check some information. Didn't do anything wrong." I held my breath. A part of me had hoped he'd say it wasn't me, that it was a mistake, that he didn't remember. But no, he knew exactly what he was doing. "You thought I wouldn't find out. I thought you'd understand," he said slowly, choosing his words. "Understand what? That when you couldn't ask directly, you'd sneak behind my back. That after everything I've done, you still see me as a kid who can't hold on to money without you supervising." He didn't answer. His gaze wasn't that of a father anymore, but of a man who'd had power, lost it, and didn't know how to handle it. My mom sat beside him, her voice softer. I didn't know. I thought it was over. I turned to her, not angry, but no room left for easy compassion. "You don't need to explain. I'm here to say this once clearly." I took a breath, stood tall. My eyes didn't leave them. "The money is gone for you. Not now, not ever. Every dollar I gave, every bill I paid, every silent transfer, it's done. No going back, no half measures, no more softening. I'm not a living wallet. I'm a person, and people need boundaries." Silence swallowed the room. I didn't wait for a reaction, didn't wait for tears. I turned and walked to the door. My mom called after me. "Andrea, can't you say something to your dad? Just don't let it end like this." I paused at the threshold. Didn't turn. Left one sentence. It ended long ago. I'm just saying it out loud today. I drove away from the old neighborhood like escaping a dream-turned nightmare. The neat little houses, the manicured lawns, all felt familiar to the point of being fake. I used to think that place was home. But no home is where trust lives, where no one tries to take what's yours behind your back. I didn't cry. I didn't feel relieved. Or heavy. Just empty. Like I'd unplugged the last cable tying me to a sunken ship. That evening I got a text from Rachel. I had nothing to do with it. "Please don't shut the door again. I've tried. I'm really trying." I read it, my heart neither boiling nor aching. I knew Rachel was starting to change, however slowly, however late. But I also knew real change takes time and proof, not words. I found a small box on my doorstep one Monday morning when the fog was thick and the sound of a school bus echoed from the street. No stamp, no sender's name. Just a paper box tied with rough twine, a handwritten note taped on top, "Andrea. I made ginger cookies if you still like the old flavor." There's some money I earned myself. Not asking for anything, just paying back a bit. I sat on the step, opened the lid. The smell of cinnamon and molasses hit me instantly, pulling me back to elementary school when every holiday meant a tray of my mom's cookies on parchment paper. And I, the only kid in class who always brought extras to share, felt proud thinking my mom made the best cookies in the world. Now, I didn't know if the cookies had changed, or if I had. I ate one, not warm, not crisp, but enough to make my chest tighten. Under the cookies was a white envelope with $73. Loose change, probably from part-time hours. Not much, but the way it was neatly folded beneath the crumbling cookies told me this wasn't an apology. It was a small, clumsy, but real act. And strangely, it choked me up more than any words could. Rachel showed up differently. She sent one text with a photo. The image was of a community board at the city welfare center featuring a colored flyer basic budgeting class, led by community support worker Rachel Miller. I stared at the text, unsure whether to laugh or cry. Rachel, who forgot to pay her phone bill for 3 months straight. Rachel, who once called me at midnight to ask how to use a debit card. Now teaching others how to manage money. But I couldn't deny it, she was doing something. Maybe out of pressure. Maybe to survive. Or maybe she was actually changing. Whatever the reason, it was better than 100 empty promises. I didn't reply, but I saved the photo to my phone. That alone was acknowledgement, however quiet. I ran into my dad by chance, unplanned by either of us. It was a damp Saturday afternoon, and I was at the public library looking for an old book. As I left, I saw a silver-haired man near the entrance handing out flyers to passers-by. Worn white shirt, wrinkled khakis, slightly hunched, but still forcing a steady smile. I recognized him before he saw me. The flyer advertised a local job fair organized by the city. He wasn't employed there, just a volunteer helping with directions. I didn't approach, didn't speak, but I stood at a distance for a few minutes amid hurried footsteps and car horns in the damp breeze, not out of curiosity. I needed to know, did he still see himself as the family pillar, or had he realized no one owed him anything anymore? He didn't see me. I left first. I thought after all this my heart would soften. But then, one late evening, I got another handwritten letter, this time from my mom. Her handwriting was the same, slanted, slightly shaky. No long-winded complaints. Andrea, we can't fix what's broken. But I believe at least we've stopped pretending. I don't think you have to carry everything anymore. I'm working. Rachel is too. If one day you want to have dinner with me, no conditions, just silence and dessert, I'll come. No demands, no expectations, just an empty chair at the table.
Mom?
I held the letter sitting in my dark living room. No lights, no music. Just the glow of streetlights through the window and me with my blank spaces. For the first time in months, I wasn't angry, just sad. Sad for the loss. Sad for knowing some wounds don't heal but can be accepted. And in that sadness, something stirred in my heart, small, fragile. Maybe hope. I didn't call back. Didn't write. Didn't say I'd return. But I carefully placed the letter next to the box of cookies she'd sent. Not because forgiveness had come, but because I no longer felt the need to hold on to hatred for protection. A year ago, if someone told me my mom would bake to support herself, Rachel would teach budgeting, or my dad would quietly hand out flyers with nowhere else to go, I'd have laughed. But now I don't laugh. I just think sometimes when there's no one left to catch you, you're forced to learn to stand. And sometimes standing is the real beginning. I didn't expect anyone to remember my birthday. Honestly, I planned to ignore it like recent years. A small cake, I'd buy myself a bouquet for the table, a few hours reading in peace. I didn't need gifts or polite happy birthday calls laced with requests. But this year was different. Not because of me, but because of them. At 9 a.m., while checking emails, a text came from Rachel. Same old number. No emojis, no capitals, no exclamation marks. Mom and I are setting up a small dinner at the bakery. No asking for anything. No old baggage. Just want to eat together like before. I stared at the message for a long time. The last line hit me like before. Before when? When we were kids fighting over the crispy edge of the pie. When Mom made chicken soup every Friday night. Or when I was naive enough to believe nothing would stay broken forever. I didn't reply. But at 6 p.m. I found myself standing outside the old bakery where Mom worked part-time. The golden light spilled onto the sidewalk like a shy invitation. The door wasn't locked. I pushed it gently. No welcome banner, no balloons. Just a small table by the window covered with a white cloth. 3 chairs, one empty. On the table was a freshly baked apple pie, the scent of cinnamon and butter weaving through the air. Warm. Simple. Not flashy, but honest. Rachel stood first. She wore a dark long-sleeve sweater, hair, tied-back eyes, nervous but grateful. My mom was setting a teapot on the table, hands trembling slightly. When she saw me, she just smiled, wordless. The kind of smile from someone who'd wronged you, but didn't dare apologize with words, only hoped you'd sit. I pulled the chair, sat. No one spoke. A minute passed, maybe 3. But it wasn't stifling, not awkward, just cautious. Then my dad appeared, from behind the kitchen door, wiping his hands on a small towel like he'd just washed them. I wasn't sure what he was doing here, helping Mom clean, volunteering to wash dishes. He walked slowly to the table, stood across from me. And for the first time since it all began, he spoke, without preaching, without a trace of pride. For the first time in my life, I'm apologizing without expecting forgiveness. I just want you to be happy. I looked at him. For a long time. He didn't bow his head, didn't hide, just looked tired, like a man who'd always thought he was right now unsure what he had left, but remnants of mistakes. I didn't speak, just nodded slightly. Then reached for a piece of apple pie and took a bite. Warm, soft, with a gentle tartness of apples and a touch of brown sugar sweetness. The taste reminded me not everything was lost. Some things remained just covered in dust. We ate in silence. No talk of the past, no blame, no pleas for another chance. Rachel poured tea. Mom glanced at me occasionally but didn't push. Dad sat still, hands clasped on the table like he was waiting for a verdict he'd already guessed. I felt like I was standing on an old bridge half collapsed, but the rest repairable if you knew how to walk slowly. None of us were the same anymore. No one played the sacrificer, the needy, or the one in control. Just 3 people with mistakes, wounds, and a fragile wish to stay on terms. When dinner ended, I stood first. Mom handed me a small bag with leftover cookies. She didn't say, "Take these home," just gently placed it in my hands. Rachel followed me to the door. Before I stepped down, she spoke neither timid nor pleading. "If you want Mom and I will keep that seat open every month. Just to know you still remember." I turned back, looked at her, at Mom, at their hopeful eyes. "No need to keep a seat," I said. "But if there's a next time, don't call it like before. We can't go back. We can only start differently." Rachel nodded. Mom didn't cry. I was glad for that. I walked away, clutching the bag of cookies. That night back home, I opened the drawer where I kept Mom's old letter. I placed it next to the new bag of cookies. Beside them was a photo Dad had once left in my mailbox. A picture of me as a kid sitting behind the kitchen counter, wearing an apron, playing store manager with a paper ledger and a toy calculator. For the first time in months, I didn't feel used looking at the past. I just saw a child who'd wanted to hold everything close, and a woman who'd finally dared to let go. After all, I realized that family isn't always a safe haven, but it doesn't have to be a permanent wound either. Some hurts need time to settle, and some boundaries need to be set for love to exist the right way. I've learned that forgiveness isn't about forgetting the past, but about accepting it so I can live fully in the present. This story isn't about revenge, but about the journey to rediscover my own worth in a tangled relationship. It's about how someone, after years of sacrifice, dared to step away, dared to say enough, and then also dared to reopen the door cautiously, but with deep humanity. If you've ever felt like you're carrying too much sacrificing too long, remember that you too deserve to be loved, to rest, and to live for yourself. Thank you for listening to my journey. If you see yourself in this story, please leave a comment, share your thoughts, and don't forget to follow the channel to join me on the next journeys ahead.